I'm here with Miss Bandy. She is the principal of Randolph Elementary School. So Miss Bandy, thank you so much for helping me out with this. I know that you're very familiar with the TPES evaluation system. We don't currently, Dr. Holt doesn't currently use that. He told me that, and he really just kind of gets, it's more like a reflective process that he does with his principals. But I'd like to know just a little bit more about the TPES and particularly how you use data and other sources to evaluate your leadership, the goals that you set. So, okay.
Yes, I was under TPES appraisals for about 18 years. In my former district, we used it as assistant principals and as principals on both sides, and so the appraiser would change, but very similar to what we do with teachers in the T-test process. You know, areas of domain that you've got 5 different markers that you can make. But there's a lot more reflection in the TPES process where you are having to make sure that you're very clearly aligned with campus plans and district plans. So it's not so much a more personal goal that you're setting, you're really making sure that your goals align with the vision of where campus and district are going.
Okay. So, but you do have, like, how do you select the goals that would align with the district or the campus?
Yes, so again, you kind of start with that visioning process and what is the campus goal of where we're going, but within that framework in the principal standards, how can I focus in a specific area that also aligns the work towards the campus progress, if that makes sense. So it is a personal choice of the goal, but the goal has to align with the direction of where we're going.
Okay. So what data sources do you use to support your goal selection?
So that comes in from everything from standardized testing, of course, STAR testing comes in. When you're looking at climate surveys from parents, from students, from everyone, community. You're obviously looking at feedback from your supervisor, but then also looking at some more informal measures, because a lot of the goals with principalship have to do with climate and culture, and some of those are very hard to quantify. And so you've got that survey data, but you also have, you know, sign-in sheets at events. You've got how much community participation are you getting. You can do quick pulse questions for those that attended this event. What feedback do you have? You know, we just had Month of the Military Child. Is there any feedback you'd like to offer? So there's a lot of qualitative piece that goes beyond just STAR data, screening data. Of course, all of our benchmark data, interim, all of that goes into it.
So when you get these responses, because that was one of my questions under culture and school climate, says how do you measure campus culture and climate?
And that's really tricky because my first years under TPES, we were in a system where we only did a survey at the end of the year. And I'll be honest, it felt very autopsy-ish. And by the end of the year, people kind of just want to wrap things up. And so it didn't feel like the most meaningful data. So then we went to these really quick 3 times a year where we surveyed, and it was more making sure you feel safe on campus, and then talking about climate and culture, and then just an open feedback, and that was much more meaningful. But really the only way to get down to that is your retention data, teacher retention, staff retention I should say, because paras and everyone else are involved in that, your retention data, and then those surveys.
Wow, okay. That leads me to a question that was in here too about you know, how you retain teachers, the teacher retention. So could you describe your approach to developing and retaining high quality teachers?
I actually think that is one of the most critical jobs in the principalship role. You know, people have different approaches to leadership. I grew up in a house where my mother and my grandmother had both been educators. My grandmother worked in a life skills unit, like hard stuff. So I heard feedback a lot. I choose to invest a lot in hiring and making sure I will go 3-4 rounds of interviews if we have to make sure that I feel good about who we're hiring. I'm not just going to jump. If we do a round of interviews and we're like, well, I guess they'll fit the job, I would rather wait, interview again in a few weeks and try again, because if you bring the wrong person in, it's going to take you 2 or 3 years to really collect enough data, show that you've supported, and it's just not right. So I will go above and beyond in interviews to do that. When we go to supporting new teachers, I do monthly check-ins with new teachers. If it's an experienced teacher that's just new to the campus, it'll be less frequent.
Sure.
Like right now we have our instructional coaches, and so they are responsible for a lot of the content training, that piece.
Right.
But I do more of the culture climate check-ins, just their feeling, how are they doing, their mental health, the adjustment. That's what I focus on with them. And then I just have I do several walkthroughs before I make it formal. So I will do several where I just go in and I'll leave a note, or I'll meet with them afterwards, but I won't document anything. Just to help kind of build that trust and that instructional coach role instead of I'm coming in to get you. And it tends to make it easier when I'm then ready to give specific written feedback.
That's a great idea, because we start off right away with the 15-minute walkthroughs, and we're already documenting. But I like that idea to earn their trust, make them feel comfortable, make the kids feel comfortable.
Yes.
And so,
we that's one of our campus pieces, is that we do one completely undocumented before we go in and do any formals.
So how do you, moving on to organizational and operational management, how do you balance instructional and operational priorities?
It's difficult, especially in the time that we're in right now, with so many legal things coming down from the state that are different. Again, we're blessed right now with instructional coaches. In my last district, we didn't have any instructional coaches, and so that entire balance fell to the admin team. I had to run a really tight calendar where I would write in every observation, every walkthrough that I was planning to do for the entire month. I would calendar them in on my calendar. I think that the part that falls through is the getting, either you focus on the classrooms, or you focus on PLC planning with your teams. I struggle finding the balance between them. Here, because we have instructional coaches, I'm able to really focus on every week we meet in those PLC teams instructionally. And so that is very meaningful. And it makes the teachers feel heard instead of just coming in an evaluative way. But there's also the budget. I mean, that's my office is always fun. I think one of the things that I had to make growth in under TPAS was from a brand new administrator moving into more experience is planning with my secretarial team of how I should get the information about budgets, maintenance, things that should happen, instead of just getting slammed every now and then. I set a specific time where from 9 to 10 or whatever it is, present it to me in this way. I'm going to touch it. If something happens, then it waits till the next day at 9.
Right.
Unless it's on fire. And that made it, because at first, when you're a new principal, you want to be everywhere and you want to support everyone. And so you put out a lot of fires all day long, but then you eventually get to the point where you realize you're not balancing that instruction with those putting out fires. And so by saying this is the process, it kind of narrows that coming at you effect.
That's good to know, because when you're, for even like assistant principal, before you really take on that role, you have all these ideas of how you're gonna, the teachers are gonna, I'm gonna go in and visit my teachers, I'm gonna let them take an extra period off and I'll take over their class, and all those great ideas. And then you find that,
you do discipline all day.
Yes. And one act can take up the entire day. So
it can.
So what systems help you maintain compliance and safety?
So every single day, after morning duty, wherever I do morning duty, I do a campus check.
Okay.
I walk the entire campus. I take eyes into every single classroom, and I go by every exterior door. We have people who check those during the day, but it just is my way of, let me get eyes on the building, I don't always, some administrators will make a point to like interface with each teacher in the morning. I would love to do that, but
Sure.
it doesn't, time just doesn't work. My thing is I want to make sure I get eyes on every classroom. Sometimes I see the teachers, sometimes I see the kids, but I get eyes, I check doors, I check things, and that just makes it so that I have a better feel. There's a lot of times as I'm doing that where people will stop and say, hey, I noticed this is a problem, I noticed this is a problem, and so I just keep notes as I walk around. And so I do that every morning, and then at the end of the day I also do the same thing, and I walk out and I exit out around the campus. I've started doing kind of regular check-ins with one of our maintenance department leads, because we're having some facility problems in our old building. And so we kind of just do a check-in walk, and this is what's been working. We've had to reset this a lot of times. And so just kind of having a regular, like, hey, every Monday at 2, come walk around with me has helped a lot.
Okay. So good routines. So what communication strategies help maintain transparency, either with community or staff or?
Again, another area of struggle for most administrators. There's a fine line between communicating and celebrating and putting all your time and effort into that. To where, like, one of my TPS goals had to do with communication early on. And I was finding that we would post a lot of stuff on social media, because I was like, we're gonna get out there, we're gonna celebrate all these things going on campus. But I was constantly replying to comments on there about things, and it just turned into, it took away from what the plan was. And so we have Parent Square now, and I had moved to that with my last district as well, and it's made a huge difference in what we do, because everyone's allowed to communicate through one platform. That was a huge need. The campus I was on originally, we had 5 different communication methods to parents, and that just does not work for anyone, because you'll share something on one platform and not share it on the other, and it's just not fair. So having one communication means for admin and teachers makes all the difference in the world.
That was always a goal of mine too, especially now with good communication. I'm always, you have to send out emails, but the whole district can see them, so it takes me a little while. I reread, because that's the last thing you want. I think maybe it's a private
again and again.
I like this question. It says, how do you support leadership growth in APs or instructional coaches?
So I think by the time someone reaches a point of being an AP or an IC, that they should be treated with the utmost professionalism. And so that really is taking the time to sit down. Like my AP right now is, what do you want to work on? You've been through this long enough, I don't recognize a giant need for something. What do you most feel like? And then I'll take my observations and just have little check-ins, quick check-ins about it. If an AP or an IC's goal is to eventually be a principal, then so now I go out of my way as I start to do things that are really more principal minded. I'll stop by and say, hey, I was working on this, let me show you how this goes. And so trying to invite them in to kind of step out of that disciplinary butts and buses role, and just get a lot of exposure to what does budgeting look like, what happens when we do have these giant capital outlay things that we need to do. So those are not typically AP level things, but the exposure to it helps then prepare.
And I feel like this district does a really good job with that. When I was going through my principal certification, I just got a lot of support and a lot of opportunities to step in when an AP was gone or something, and even now. So I love that support, and we need it, because there's so much.
There is so much. And I also think one of the important things, like with our ICs, we've kind of moved them around year to year of what grades, because I am fortunate enough, I've kind of changed every 5 years, and I have been able to be everywhere from elementary up through high school. And it completely changes your lens when you have an experience like that, because I started at elementary, and so I had to go through teaching kids how to read and how to do those things. Well, then it makes you have a different level of respect when you go up to high school, and you're figuring out, well, why is this kid in 9th grade and can't read? And you can do a lot more with intervention and things when you understand the other piece. Whereas now, I went to high school, I've come back down to elementary, well, I've seen where the road leads, and so now I can come back, and it's just a frame I really think any AP or IC should do, is to make sure you don't just work at one level.
I agree. You know, as a teacher, I taught 4th through 12th. Everyone was my favorite grade, but you have a better understanding of the needs of that student when they're in 4th grade, as opposed to what they need in 6th grade and then 12th grade. So I agree, that's good. And then I just want to finish it up with this. It says, how do you document leadership actions linked to student outcomes? Because at the end of the day, that's, you know, our priority.
Well, and really, all leadership outcomes should be, leadership activities should be attached to a student outcome. So if we're putting time and energy into something that isn't linked to a student outcome, then it's not the right priority. So that's the first thing, is to make sure they are aligned. We set out and do a giant master calendar for the year of all of our campus activities. We look at our survey data from the year prior and say, okay, these were things that they said we didn't have enough of, or they would like to see more of. So we spend a lot of time crafting our master calendar for the whole year, and then we really stick to it, which is hard because sometimes things pop up and people want things, but we really try hard to stick to the goals. And then we get a lot of teacher feedback about when things work and when things don't, or what activities may have negatively impact student outcomes, and we just hadn't thought about it. So far, we've seen our data really responding to what we're doing, and so we're feeling good about it. But I've also been, especially when I was a brand new administrator, and I just pumped in all of these initiatives and it's not always the right move. I know, but we have all these wonderful ideas. Yes, we do. We do.
So this is not a question on the TPES, but I feel like it kind of goes along with this when you're talking about feedback, teacher feedback. I feel now in this position is so important because I want to be there for our teachers. You know, if they feel supported, then they're going to support the students. So it's just kind of, you know, it just goes along. But when we get the results from the Alpaca survey, and there are some negative things. To me, I take them personally because I feel like we're doing that, and of course they're you know, anonymous, so we can't really get that answer. But how do you, when you receive the feedback?
It's so hard. I had a really great mentor when I first started, was my first TPES appraiser, and she said anytime you give a survey, you remove the outliers, and so remove your top 10% that are gushing about everything and everything's great. Remove your bottom 10% that are everything's negative. And what you're looking for is that kind of where you have the data to support kind of this is the middle of the road average of what people are thinking. It's really hard because we get negative comments, and I will lose sleep over it for weeks. Even though sometimes I can tell that is that teacher, because I just had to have this hard conversation, and you just take it personally, but that means that we care.
I know sometimes I've been told just delete them, and it's like you know,
I
think maybe after a while, you know, I might, and it is hard because I try to figure out what teacher said that.
Always.
Because but and you're right, it is important.
Every voice is a voice, and so like this last time there were 2 comments on there that I really do not understand where they came from. And so at that point I did send out to campus and I said, hey, this is the general thing that was shared. If you have some specific feedback, please come talk to me, because if I don't understand it, I can't do anything about it. And if more than one person was thinking the same thing, they probably filled it out together. But I feel the need to at least acknowledge, hey, I got these. If you want to come talk to me, come talk to me.
Well, thank you, Miss Bandy. That was really good information, and I appreciate you taking your time.
Absolutely. Good luck.